Today on Grow It With Science, I'm going to show you how to prune your tomato plants. Before we actually start pruning tomato plants, the first thing we need to consider is that how we prune or train the plant depends on the type of tomato variety and how it naturally grows. The two main growth types are Indeterminate, which can also be called vine or cordon, and Determinate, which can also be called a bush. When you buy seeds or plants, just check on the label or the pack, or you can just check online and you'll soon be able to find out which growth mode it is, and then you can prune it correctly and you'll be able to look after it in the right way. The easiest way to remember the difference between the two types is that determinate tomato plants have a determined time in which they'll set fruit, which is normally around 2 weeks, and it'll set all of its fruit at once in one big go. Whereas your indeterminate plants, they tend to last the whole season, so they have a non-determined time, so they'll start setting fruit earlier in the season, and then they'll go straight through until the frost comes and kills them at the end of the season. So first we'll have a look at the indeterminate varieties. Unlike determinate varieties that reach the maximum height and set all the fruit in one go, indeterminate varieties will keep growing and setting fruit throughout the season, and that's why they're often called vining tomatoes, because they grow on a long vine and they keep growing longer and longer until the frost kills them. One thing to consider is that they tend to start ripening a bit later in the season than determinate varieties, because they tend to invest a bit more energy earlier on into growing tall before setting fruit. The majority of tomato varieties that we cultivate are indeterminate, including most heirlooms and cherry varieties. Even a lot of dwarf tomato varieties are indeterminate. Some of the more popular varieties that we grow, including beefsteak, brandywine, sungold, sweet million, all indeterminate varieties. Earlier producing varieties such as Celebrity are also indeterminate, however these tend to mature earlier and die back before the end of the growing season, so sometimes these are called semi-determinate. So if you see that on the label, you know that they're indeterminate but they die back earlier. It's really important with indeterminate varieties that you do stake or cage them, because obviously they grow really tall. They can reach maybe 6 to 10 feet tall or even taller, and once they start setting fruit they do become very heavy, and if you don't support them they will just collapse over and fall over and do themselves a bit of damage. Alternatively, tomato plants can be grown upside down as a hanging vine, and this eliminates the need for support, and it keeps the fruit up off the ground and lets the air circulate all the way around and keeps them disease free. However, the plant will still be heavy, so you do need a strong hook or hanger, just otherwise it'll just fall off and hit the deck. One of my projects for next season is I'm going to compare tomatoes growing upwards against gravity and hanging downwards and growing with gravity, and just see which ones grow better and which ones have the most tomatoes and the most success, and we can compare the two using two of the same varieties. So make sure that you subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss those videos, and you can check out all my other experiments as well. So this is the plant I'm going to be pruning, just to give you a bit of an example. I've not been over as much as I would have liked to have been in the last couple of weeks under the circumstances, but it's not doing bad. It's just got a bit of work that we can do on it just to give it a bit of better growth. And the first thing I'm going to do is just check over the leaves. So when you're looking at tomato plants, it's everything that comes out of this stem is a full leaf. So we're just going to check these over. Any that don't look good or any indications of disease, we're just going to cut off just to make sure it doesn't spread all the way through the plant, and just to keep it in the best health. So I'll just have a look over these now. So here we go, this is just what I'm talking about. This leaf here, it's not looking great, and it's got little brown marks and brown spots on it, so we just want to take that off. Make sure that your secateurs or scissors or a knife or whatever it is you're using are sterile, just so that you don't spread diseases between plants if there is any. And all we're going to do, cut that off there like that, and that's it. So the next thing is just the likes of this stem here. This is quite big at this point, it's actually started to flower, but I don't want that. That's coming off the main stem as like a third bull stem, so all I'm going to do again, cut that off. Same goes for this one here. This is growing out lower down, just going to cut that off as well. One there at the back. And just here on the secondary stem, there's just another one there, so I'm just going to take that off as well. Next job, we've got the base of the plant. So this is our first set of tomatoes here. Everything below this I can cut off so that we've got a nice clean stem up to this point. Stops attracting disease into these lower leaves from the soil, and it gives us plenty of air around the base of the plant. So I'm just going to cut those off now, and then that's done. There we go, that's it. So that's nice and happy. So your last job is just to get rid of all these little guys here. So these are suckers, and they grow between your leaves and your main stem, and they'll grow just in this little node here, just where the two meet. So all you need to do is, if they're this big, you just pinch it off. Bigger than a pencil, you want to use your cutters, just because they won't come off cleanly. So you just want to make sure that you do get a clean cut on those. And all you've got to do is just go around and just every time you see one of these, just pinch it off. And they'll stop pulling all the goodness out of your plants. So there's another one, quite a bit bigger this time. Boink, and it's done. Another thing to look out for when you're going over everything and getting everything in shape is just to look for any deformed fruit. So if you spot this one here, it's in a bad way, that one actually, so I'm just going to cut it off. So there we go, not in a good way that at all. It's what's called cat facing, and it's fairly deformed. That I don't want the plant pouring energy into making this grow any bigger, so cut it off now, and it can just focus the energy on the other tomatoes that are growing correctly. So let's get rid of that one. So that's it. Once you've done that, maybe give them a check over every week and see if there's anything else growing, you know, any more suckers, any more stems, just so you can get them well to small. And really, you should have a happy tomato plant and plenty of tomatoes. So we're on to Determinate or bush tomatoes, which are varieties that grow to a fixed mature size and ripen all the fruit in a short period, which is normally around 2 weeks. Once this first load of fruits ripen, the plant tends to weaken and lose vigour and die back, and it'll barely set any worthwhile fruit after this. Determinate tomato varieties are often referred to as bush tomatoes because they grow up to one height and then they stop. They don't carry on growing as a long vine throughout the season like indeterminate varieties, and they only grow to around 4 or 5 feet tall, so they're a bit smaller than indeterminate varieties as well. You don't really need to prune or remove suckers from determinate varieties because they just stop growing on their own, so it's unnecessary, which makes it a bit easier to care for. Despite being a more compact plant, you do still want to stake or cage a determinate tomato bush, because once it sets fruit, it's going to get a fat load of tomatoes on it and they're going to start ripening, and if you don't support it, it's just going to fall over flat, which is the last thing you want. Growing determinate tomatoes is ideal when you want to grow a load of tomatoes at once, such as if you want to make a load of tomato sauce, for example. So Roma tomatoes are often a determinate variety, such as San Marzano, while some others have been bred to be determinate so they can be harvested in a large quantity all at once, such as Celebrity and Marglobe varieties. So both determinate and indeterminate varieties are pluses and minuses, so it depends on what you want to get from the fruit really. If you live in a climate maybe where you've got a short summer or a short growing season, you want to get a determinate variety so that you can make sure that you can get as much fruit as you can from the plant before the cold comes. Or if you've got a long growing season like we've got in the UK, get an indeterminate variety and you can grow them right through summer into autumn before the frost comes in the winter. So it's, like I say, it's all down to what's best for you and what's going to grow best in your environment and climate. So the best thing I'd recommend is maybe to just experiment, get a couple of different varieties and get a few plants of each one and see which ones grow best for you. So like in my greenhouse here, I've got like 5 or 6 different types of tomatoes. I think they're all indeterminate, but just see which one does best, and then next year just grow all the ones that did the best, and that's the best way to do it really. So that's it for today. Hopefully now you've got everything you need to know to identify what tomato plants you've got and everything you need to do to just keep them in good shape and get the most tomatoes out of them. If it's helped you, do let me know in the comments, or if you've got any other tips of your own, do let me know, and make sure you subscribe to Grow Up With Science so that you don't miss my future videos, and have a look at the other videos I've done as well. So until then, I'll see you next time.